What are you doing?
Oh, hello. This is building blocks. This is well, it's really a maquette for a sculpture I want to make. It's just a smaller model. But I thought, the heck, I got some aluminum left over. Let's just make it out of aluminum. Let's have a little fun with that for a while. Do some AC welding instead of DC welding. But I had a question the other day. A guy wanted to know, how do you decide on a base? How do you know how big to make it? Big, wide, thick plate, thin plate. What are my thoughts on that when I'm doing the bottom of a piece of sculpture work? So a couple of things I like to keep in mind when I do a base. Is it going to be big enough, heavy enough, have a big enough footprint to actually hold the sculpture? And is it going to look right with the sculpture? We don't want a cinder block sitting down there just because that's the right size and weight. You want something that'll look right and go with it. So, with this base, it's got a nice width, it's got a nice depth, but the sculpture's pretty tall. So is it going to have enough mass to itself in the base to be able to hold it up? Somebody could come along and push it. You don't want it to fall over. You don't want the wind to be able to get a hold of it and knock it over. Well, a way to get around that, fill it about that full of sand. That's what I did with this one. Be careful when you're welding. You get all your sides welded, you get your base welded, you get everything but like one little corner welded, and then I just put a funnel, put a long funnel in there and filled it full of sand and went ahead and got that last little bit done. So probably a good 25 pounds worth of weight just in the base itself. So it's pretty solid. It's not going to go anywhere. So now with cohesive curves here, that's what we're calling this bell. The base on this one, well, it actually started out as just a Haro dish. That gave me a nice, wide, it's almost 2 foot in diameter, nice flat surface, so when you set it on something, it's got contact all the way around. But it was a little juggling between how much weight is down here, how much stability is there in that, to counteract all that height and this big bell. So I just actually came off of the base and brought it forward just a little. You can see this is actually a little farther off the base this way. It sticks out farther than the dish does. And take all that back behind here. Put plenty of steel back here. Put plenty of weight off the edge of the base. It is actually, without the bell, it is almost too far weighted that way. But then I could put the bell in, and you see the bell is actually right in the center, maybe just a little bit forward. So about 60 pounds worth of steel back here to counteract that 125 pounds worth of steel up here. It's a real juggling match right there to try to get it to all come out correctly. I think I did okay. Here, come here and look at this one. See, I see with square up, what I did with this one, something to keep in mind with this was, well, the whole darn thing moves. It's like a big slinky on steroids. So it's got a lot of wiggle to it. So a nice wide base, a nice, a nice width this way, nice depth that way. So it can stand here all by itself like that, and there's no movement in the base. But the way this base was intended, though, was to be sunk in concrete. So when this goes outside, dig a small trench, set it, good 6-8 inches down into the concrete, or add some rebar to the bottom of it when it's ready to be installed, and then plant it in concrete that way. So no matter how hard you push on it, it's not going to go anywhere. The other thing I could do with this is to simply box it out a little. I could add a little depth to it, but I could also add a little width to it. Instead of it just being a box, I could go ahead and slant the sides out, slant the edges out, make the base even wider, and still make it look nice here. So, come on in the office real quick. Let me show you one more. Okay, so this one's Dorothy's Nightmare. It's and it's on a really small base, you see, compared to what you would think is, the size and the width of this and the diameter of this. It's about 90 pounds. So a lot of weight right there, kind of high, but it's all centered right over the center of the base. So it's still pretty stable, well, as long as the pedestal doesn't move, but it's still pretty stable on that little tiny base. But because this goes inside, it goes on a pedestal somewhere, it goes on a shelf somewhere, I can get away with that. I don't need this big monster base because it's not going to be out in the wind. It's not going to have people coming around going, ooh, look at that. So, oh, wait, a bonus. Here, come here. So this one's Cyclone. And you can see on this, you've got all of this mass hanging out over here, tiny, tiny little bit hanging here, and these tiny, tiny little pads down here on the bottom. The secret behind this? Well, just try to find the center of this whole mass, and you see, well, it's actually got legs on the other side of the center. So now it becomes a balancing act again between this little bit of metal, this mass of metal that's on the other side of the center of the mass itself. So there's actually more weight over here than there is there. Kind of a trick. And to tell you the truth, yes, it fell over about 6 times before I got it all finally balanced right. Figured out how long to make the legs, the angles to make the legs. So, yeah, it took a little guesswork, but you finally get it. So I hope that answers your question. There's a lot of math involved. There's a lot of guesswork involved. There's some knowledge. After a while, you get the hang of how to do it. And it kind of becomes easier. Make sure it looks right. Make sure it's big enough. Make sure it's heavy enough. Don't go crazy. You'll know it when you look at it and go, "Oh, I could have cut that down a little bit." Yeah, you should have. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to go back to work.